All right, Kasakai Mumbai, good morning, Sat Sri Akal, everyone. All right, so finally we all are here, and two very warm welcome, especially to this amazing crowd over here. I must say, all okay. How are we doing, all? First of all, yes, no, maybe good, better, best. All right, so no problem. We will be just starting and kick-starting our day. So, are we excited for the session? First of all, let me know. Are you here for the session, or you're just complete your EODs like as always? How is it? Because I want to make this session very interactive. What say? Can we? Thoda sa? Can we? Thoda sa? Thank you. All right. So, first of all, my name is Karishma. I'll be your host for today. And today we are here to celebrate the past and, most importantly, to present, to enjoy the same and look forward to the future. Nothing less than that. So, first of all, a big round of applause for all of one who is, make this contribution of coming from traffic, trains, everywhere. And thank you so much, everyone, for taking out time from your busy schedules and making this day more memorable for us. So, finally, Fintech and Equalifi represents India Fund Innovation Summit 2023. Everyone! All right, so the first speaker we will be announcing soon. Before that, I just wanted to know, are we all from the finance industries? Who's interested in money? I'm interested. No, I'm not from finance. All right. Are we? Yes, no? Okay, as I said, it has to be interactive. Yesterday, by the way, I visited a doctor, and he told me, you have to get your ear tested. So I'm, very little deaf, so please, if you can manage. Are we excited? Sorry. Are we excited? Left side. Are we excited? Okay, let's place this way. Left, right. Center one, you can part yourself among these two. Left, right, are we excited? Left? Yes. Okay, let's see right walo mein kitna dam hai in that case. Right side, are we excited? Yes. Okay, so now both together. 3, 2, 1, are we excited? Yes! Now that was a kickstart. All right, so first of all, may I please call on stage Sreekanth Nadella, Managing Director and CEO of Fintech, who is going to be an amazing partner for today. And he will be talking about this changing face of fund administration using technology and digital transformation. Over here, a little small introduction from them, because I really take the proud to call some amazing personalities on this stage who would be coming and going. What we need to do is give them a bit of a round of applause, because they deserve each and every bit of it. So a little intro about him. Mr. Sreekanth Nadella, a chartered accountant by profession, brings more than 20 years of experience in the leadership capacity across functions of finance. 20 years, my God, it's a big number. All right. In finance, operations, IT and ITES, strategy consulting, digital transformation, finance, healthcare, government, resources, industry, and whatnot, I must say. It's a continuously lines of going on. Sreekanth Nadella is currently also managing a director, wow, and CEO of Fintech Technologies, as I said, who is going to be our partner and our sponsor for today as well. He is formerly known as Karawi, Managing Director over here, and Chief Executive Officer as well. Mr. Nadella represents over here pioneering financial services, over 60% of mutual fund houses in India and several AMCs in Southeast Asian and Middle Eastern economies. Mr. Nadella over here has won numerous awards and rewards as well, accolades, including top 25 financial technology CEOs of Asia for again 2020, Outstanding Achievement Awards for Business Excellence from All India Achievers Foundation, CMO Asia Business Leaders Award, and Asia One's Global One over here for the year 2021. He has also delivered best in class of IT and ITES outcome for clients across 50 plus countries, over 2 decades of leadership experience working with some of the best organizations globally, such as IBM Global Services, Capita, Accenture, and Gall Health. Well, this is all about it. May I have a big one so that we can start a session again? Mr. Sreekanth Nadella, can we have you on the stage, please? Good morning, sir. How are we doing today?
Very well, thank you.
All right. So, are we ready to kickstart the day, sir?
Yes,
What are your expectations from our lovely audience, which I can see over here?
I think some of them should gravitate towards the front bench here.
Right. You know why he's saying that? I'll tell you. Because these seats are not reserved yet. So before we reserve it and take you extra pay, come on, everyone, just sit ahead since our speaker of the day is requesting you for the same. Come on, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Karishma, for the glorious introduction. I really don't believe I've done so much for a nearly 2-minute long introduction. But thanks a lot for being here. It's my pleasure, my honor, and a privilege to be here talking to some of the largest asset management personnel in the country. Warm welcome to the first of its kind, the Asset Management and the Fund Innovation Summit that's being curated by Equalifi and Fintech together. It's a partnership that we started about a half year back, and something that we cherish and something that we believe that will build on over a period of time. Now, you're here to listen to the content, not so much about ourselves, so let me dive right into it. It's about half an hour or so, and then I'll leave some time for question and answers. I would start with saying that, fund accounting as an administration in general, all the asset management, whichever asset class that you take, whether it is mutual funds or alternatives, other asset classes, including cryptos, etc. I think, we all know that they have taken the world over by storm. It's globally a $50+ trillion industry at this point in time, and then one that is rapidly growing with each passing day. I do not have to rattle out statistics. You all know it very well. I think India, yet at this point in time, is just at the cusp of taking off. We may have seen some exuberant growth over the last 2 years, and if you think that's something that may not be replicable, I'd like to believe that's just the start, and what's going to happen over the next 5 to 7 years is going to be absolutely stellar, going by any standards in terms of permeation of asset management industry into as a ratio of GDP, we still stack at no more than 10%. Developed economies stack at about 3 times the GDP. Even developing economies are about 60 to 70%. Unique investors in the industry, just about 4 crores across investable population of nearly 90 to 95 crores. So you can see that it's not even 5% at this point in time. The people who would actually invest have invested at this point in time. One of the reasons why there has been an explosion, amongst many other things, is the fact that investing has become a very easy process. Now, to drive ease of doing business, I'm sure all of you unanimously would agree that technology plays probably the most important role to taking the financial products to the masses. What was once a privilege of select few today is something that could be accessible by anybody and everybody. What continues to, however, excite us is the fact that the evolving and the new range of technologies, including, probably now it has become almost cliche to talk about ChatGPT. What are the use cases, right, as to how these can basically change our lives for better. Now, I'll try to make it less theoretical and more practical so that you'd be able to relate to it. Let me get going with this. So broadly, I'll be covering in 3 sections. One, the challenges. It's not a great way to start a day recounting all the challenges we have, but we believe that it's a good way also to segue into how those could be resolved and how we can make this entire process a very easy journey, one that is fully compliant, that cannot be taken away from the fund administration process. And last but not the least, what are some very specific use cases that we have already seen over the past few months, few years, if I may, and what we believe could come to the fore in as early as into the next quarter. So let's get started. Now, 5 broad items, right? I mean, the siloed data and the cybersecurity and the data privacy issues associated with that. Again, not something that you wouldn't have heard of it, but it is particularly problematic in our industry. Why is that? Be it mutual funds, be it alternatives, be it any fund class, each of us deal with, on an average, 2,000 plus integrations into the industry, be it exchanges, be it depositories, the registrars, the payment aggregators, the KRAs, so on and so forth. And within your own ecosystem, you will have multiple applications, something that could be about your order management system, to your onboarding platform, to reporting, BI dashboards, fund accounting, valuation, so on and so forth. Now, we all, I'm sure, fully understand and appreciate that no two platforms, unless created by the same entity and with an absolutely synchronous architecture, will ever be the same. So what we're dealing with the world of asynchronous data. So the data standards that you get from a particular entity will not match with the rest of the entities. Now, the number of clients I have met over the past 6 to 7 months who believe that data is absolutely the way to go ahead and to grow. However, they massively struggle. We've seen a lot of contracts being doled out to large tech players, but you would rarely ever see all of that fructifying in the value and the outcomes that you truly want to see. And why is that? It is for the very simple reason that the data is not machine readable. As I said already, the data is asynchronous. And to merge all of this data and playing at a big data level to create a valuable outcome is almost at this point in time sounds disillusioning. Now, that's not a good place to be at, because a lot of fund administrators, what they do is they will try once, they will try twice, and they basically believe that all of this is just a big hoax for big tech companies to make money and then move on. That can't be any more incorrect way to look at it. It is but obvious that we need to embrace it. It's just that we need to look at the right partners who can make it happen for us, right? And we'll discuss in terms of how some of this could be sorted out over time to come. So basically the siloed data, from a fund administrator standpoint, from the compliance standpoint, from your operations lead, from your customer relationship management, there is no one way at this point in time, we are able to see synchronous data across the asset managers that we have seen at this point in time. Quickly moving on, in terms of the regulatory landscape, I think, this is obviously but stating the very obvious. In the last 2 years that, we've seen, obviously a enlarged, scope of regulation, and to a point maybe it could also be felt a bit overbearing, but close to 100 odd circulars have come through, across asset classes with alternatives or mutual funds, so on and so forth, on the registry side as well. And implementing and staying compliant with all of them is a gargantuan task. It is a task that many companies have come to believe that, not only do we need a separate function, but you need a dedicated partner beyond your entity who specializes in making sure that you stay compliant at all points in time. As the saying goes, if you believe compliance is expensive, try being non-compliant. Yeah. So that basically gets us to the next point, which is largely about, not just the jurisdiction in terms of the regulation for India. Now, many of you have, funds, cross-border funds, offshore location funds. You may have a scenario where you will have to consolidate and aggregate compliance requirements at your entity level, not necessarily at your local fund level. Now, that is not an easy thing either, right? And that is something that you would find, very rarely a common platform which is able to provide those kind of solutions, which can make you sure that not just you are compliant from the local regulation standpoint, but you're able to report out back to your own leadership, whichever location that particular fund could be domiciled in. Now, many of you, most of you, probably all of you, I think probably will fall into this category, which is, being from the asset management itself, the fund house. Now, we sit on the, rear side of it. We manage largely as Fintech as an organization, mostly the front, middle, and the back office operations for the fund managers, but we are not necessarily the people who create your product and sell your product. Now, we fully understand in terms of the bandwidth, that is eviscerating, that is evaporating with each passing day, because of all probably what you may consider as non-core to you, which is effectively the operations, your compliance, and a whole lot of other things, because you are here to basically raise funds and generate alpha for your clients. Now, how much of your time, if you actually draw a pie chart and then see, actually goes into that versus everything else? Over the last 5-6 years that I've been in the industry, I've seen progressively with each passing day the fund manager's time to actually focus on customer acquisition, customer engagement, and delivering the alpha has come down dramatically. It comes down to almost less than 50% at this point in time, and that is not a good way to utilize the skill, the expertise that you've built over time. Now, again, this could be because of regulation. This is also because of customers, who constantly have been more and more demanding, and that kind of segues into the next item, which is about your customer acquisition, your investor experiences. we have seen not too distant a past a scenario when a statement of account for your customer used to go probably 5 days or 6 days, later after you purchase. In today's world, we are able to send, if it is a liquid fund, for example, in 15 minutes, if it is an equity or a debt kind of a fund, within the next morning, by next morning you do it. And next morning used to be 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock, now it goes at 6 o'clock, and even that is not enough. Questions are being asked, why can't it be sent the moment NAV is received? It is no different for your alternatives as well, right? And for all of that to happen across speed of transactions, which has literally been crossing Moore's law by any stretch of imagination, nearly doubling both in terms of data, is something that is possible if and only if we embrace technology. And technology at scale, technology that basically is also something that does not burn through your cash coffers of your hard-earned money that you deliver through investment management. Now we'll speak a little bit about the growing investor expectations and what's that we can do in the fund administration side. And the last item of this is a completely disintegrated platform and channels. I often speak with my teams, and we've been a large player in mutual funds. As the introduction goes, we manage about 60% plus of the mutual fund houses in the country. But when you look at alternatives, I found this very strange dichotomy whereby an investor who probably puts in 500 rupees in a mutual fund, has a plethora of platforms, plethora of services from which they can choose from, which is great. It's a great service that we're able to extend. However, when you look at alternatives, a HNI, ultra HNI, I rarely even see a simple platform, let alone provide services which are far superior to that of a common investor. So where is the differentiation for your HNI, ultra HNI customers, right? No white glove service, no specialized platforms for them, no ease of onboarding. Even onboarding takes, honestly, 3 to 4 days. Now we have to solve this. We have to solve this not just for the fact that they need a certain set of services which are at least akin to that of what a common investor would get, but also because you would see a fairly large transition from probably a mutual fund investor into the alternatives for various reasons. One, just a growing wealth amongst the people in the country. Two, obviously a differentiator alpha that you're able to generate from the alternatives. And last but not the least, the movement and exodus of funds that are expected to happen given regulatory changes that are constantly pushing the mutual fund investor probably to look at maybe pastures such as alternatives, so on and so forth. So it is not just about providing differentiated set of services, but more importantly provide a synchronous unified platform for yourselves as an asset manager, for your relationship managers, for the end investors, for the distribution chain, and your compliance chain. So do we have any such thing at this point in time which can basically nicely sum it all up and then make sure that your operations are seamlessly running so that you could focus on again what you do best, which is generating alpha for your customers. So these we believe are some of the plaguing challenges in this industry, and given the stage we are in at this point in time in terms of the industry on the cusp of taking off, I think this is as good a time as it can be, for someone to stand up and then basically create all of this, right? And it continues to be a fragmented market, unlike in the case of mutual funds, which may be about, 40 odd. AIFs, we're already about 800, 900, and, it's a number that is expected to surpass about 1,500 in the next 2 to 2.5 years, based on the number of licenses that we have seen being applied in SEBI, so on and so forth. So before it becomes too big to fail, I think it's important to create solutions and platforms which make our lives and the investors' lives and the distribution lives extremely easy, right? Now, there may be more, and I'd love to hear from you in terms of, what more do you believe are the challenges that you are plaguing, because as I said, you are in the front and center of it. We are the people who are expected to solve these problems for you, right? So I'll move on in terms of, while that being the challenges, this topic is all about technology. It's going to be a bit dry. While the introduction goes, I'm a chartered accountant. I think at the core, I'm more a technologist. My career largely had been with Accenture and IBM, creating large-scale system solutions for clients across the globe in financial services and non-financial services too. So I'll try to bring to bear in terms of what you may have heard 10 times or 10,000 times over about people talking about cloud and big data and all of that stuff, but basically bring to bear as to what are the use cases for our industry and what, if at all, any solution exists today. And if yes, how we believe that you could embrace the same, right? So now this is a chart, extremely busy chart, maybe not even visible, but let me just kind of, simplify it for you. In a typical asset management industry, in a fund house, not too distant, history, the profile of people who get hired in an investment management company typically are, your analysts and FP&As and obviously the investment managers, which basically is about 90%. The residuary of 10% is effectively your staff functions, as they call it. This is your line function, the rest is staff functions, which is hiring, which is IT, finance, so on and so forth. Now, on the left-hand side, what you see here is effectively a Goldman Sachs 2020, not even 2023, hiring profile as published on their official website. Now, what you see out there, and I'll call out very specifically, is the component about technology and the number of people they have hired from a technology standpoint. That number stands at a staggering 54%. 54% of the people who have been hired in Goldman Sachs are not investment managers, not fund accountants, not chartered accountants, but technology people, right? I think it is, now this is well before ChatGPT, this is well before, at scale AI, ML, so on and so forth. So if we believe that, this is all still, evolving and probably may not have touched our shores yet, I think we have another thing coming, because whoever has embraced this obviously have moved on to levels that, honestly, it will be very, very hard for us to catch up. Now, there are similar emerging trends happening in India as well. For example, the account aggregator framework. I have had closed user group discussions with several of my clients and prospect clients, and I'm yet to get a credible answer as to how a wealth manager or an AIF or a PMS or even a mutual fund house, for that matter, actually sees the utility of account aggregator to drive their business. I'm not talking about operations at this point in time. I'm talking about pure customer acquisition and delivering value for them, right? If we haven't started thinking about it, and if there are 5 entities who have thought and created use case and or partnered with people who have created use case, I think it's a matter of time that you're going to start losing clients more than anything else. And I'll just explain in terms of how we believe it can be leveraged to do the same, right? On the right-hand side, again, we started looking in terms of what are the Google trends and see what is that you're actually hiring. It kind of corroborates the left-hand statement, which may be from a limited use case of Goldman Sachs. But on the right-hand side is what you see: asset management hiring of data scientists. Effectively, data scientists have officially now become the single biggest hiring requirement in any asset manager. It is an exotic commodity. It is very easy for somebody to stylize themselves as data scientists, but it comes with a very, very specific skill and use case, and not too many people are there. But whoever is there, I still do not see too much of fund houses in India actively pursuing a data scientist or a team who basically are going to be part of their core operations, not somebody who will just create fancy dashboards and give it to us, but actually drive your core business in itself, right? And that's a trend the world has embraced. I'd like to believe still that, the world has, been growing much faster in terms of the asset management industry in comparison to India. Our percentages may look impressive, but in terms of absolute number, it is still a very, very small sliver in the global asset management industry. Again, one of the things that I strongly believe that hopefully we should embrace not too distant future, will not belabor too much on this. This basically speaks about, again, world over in terms of how much of the money that is being spent today, on technology transformation side goes into the asset management industry, right? I mean, a fair bit of it goes towards RPA, because that obviously is the simplest use case when you talk to operations, compliance, etc., saying that, can I automate this process, can I automate that process? Simple use case, several people have done, several people have succeeded, fully or partially. But again, this is not at scale. But what's important to note is that in terms of AI and ML, again, extremely cliche topics, everybody uses those words, fairly ubiquitously, but without any real use case, are scenarios where we really haven't moved much in our country at this point in time. Cloud computing, another one. It hasn't happened that we haven't had a conversation with a client and who said that my data is insecure in the cloud and I do not want to take my data out there. Not probably necessarily knowing that a cloud hosted by Microsoft Azure or AWS honestly is far more secure than any of our data centers. It is nearly impossible for any fund house or even an intermediary such as to invest the kind of dollars that many of these large corporations can invest to make sure that your data is absolutely protected. So some of these things, and also the fact that many of us probably still fully do not understand and appreciate, so what if it goes to cloud, right? And those kind of things, something, we'll be able to understand and appreciate better when technology becomes a line function and not a staff function. So it is imperative not just to have an IT and a tech team, but basically make them part of your core progress, and not necessarily look at people who manage your infrastructure and data and then give you some reports, so on and so forth. So these are the areas where money in the world has generally been gravitating over the last few years in terms of the fund management industry. But what I will do is, some of these topics will elaborate to understand as to how quickly we could embrace, and do we actually have use cases in our country at this point in time to kind of implement in your own ecosystem. So kind of we picked six disparate and probably growing tech world, and we'll talk about use cases. The cloud and native technologies, I just spoke about it. Let's take a look at it, right? I mean, about 57% of the asset managers, absolutely believe that there is a massive benefit in going to cloud. However, less than 10% of any fund house, or even administrators at this point in time are cloud enabled. Now let's understand as to why it's important and what are the things that we could do with that. Going to cloud, more than anything else, gives you two very significant benefits. First of which is your speed to market. You want to launch a new onboarding platform. You want to create your wealth management platform on a SaaS model so that you can deploy it any country that you would want by just tweaking a few things, or adding a new and emerging asset class that you would want to do, or add a new module that a compliance framework has come, and then somebody else is managing your compliance management. How quickly can you add to this? In the absence of cloud, you will find yourself to be significantly lagging in speed to deployment. Second is data. Now, as a company, we sit on at this point in time 1.8 petaflops of data, which makes us one of the largest companies in India, not by revenue, but by the data, amount of data that we have with us. And you will be no different in time to come, right? And as that progresses, your ability to make informed decisions driven by data keeps falling down. Imagine a world where you have 100 rows or 2,000 rows in an Excel file, and you want to run a certain MIS. You can simply drag and drop on a pivot table and do it. But you think as to how you could do the same thing if you were to have a 20 million records to do it. It's not going to happen. Your system will not support it. Now that is where your cloud computing can give you the right kind of support that is needed. And for that, you also will be well served if your starting of your journey itself is on cloud. So it doesn't make sense at all to have a non-native cloud infrastructure, application layer, but data being pushed into cloud. You're creating, again, another layer of dissonance in terms of technology. So for many of you who are probably newly setting up your funds or about to set up funds, or someone who's thinking about transforming, this is probably the place here where you would want to start, right? In terms of making sure that the applications are created cloud native with data already stored in cloud. People will tell you that cloud is more expensive, so on and so forth. But with experience, I can assure you that over a period of time, it will always work out a lot cheaper than on-prem solutions, because we typically tend not to estimate the cost of your hardware and the people who are managing it and the cybersecurity associated with that, so on and so forth, right? You add it all up and then you kind of compare it to your cloud computing. Any given day, it's always going to be cheaper, and not to mention far more secure than what others may think that it is actually insecure to go to the cloud. We will just discuss about a few use cases. What you see here are just a bunch of reports, that are possible. What you see on the left-hand side is effectively, I'm sure, you can easily relate to a pivot table on an Excel file. As I was just starting to talk about it, your ability to do the same on millions of records is practically nil. You will not be able to do it. We have created solutions whereby you can do the same, right? Not just your compliance reporting as well as your daily MISs that you need for your sales and customer engagement and compliance and operations management, but also any ad hoc report you'll be able to literally drag and drop and then make it, create those in that drop of fingertips. So these are some of the use cases that you could do from fund administration. The number of times mail exchanges happen. Now we manage about 400 odd funds alternatives in India. And I see a massive amount of mail communication going. I need this report, and a bunch of people sitting, creating, QCing it, and sending it over to you. Somebody at your end QCs it all over again, and then basically uses it. The lag that you have, honestly, is a criminal waste of your time, effort, energies, and possibly an opportunity that has been gone. Similar is the case with your BI dashboard, so on and so forth. So the point I'm really trying to drive in terms of ability to embrace cloud and big data is that we are in an industry where data is going to expand, has already expanded, literally doubling every 2 to 3 months. And as that happens, you should want to be ready before you reach a point where you will no longer be in a position to get the information you want out of your systems, even though you may get them today. Yeah. Move on. So these are again, while that is again more a ubiquitous use case in terms of BI and all, what are probably more functional and a business process use case. If you see today, all the asset classes, most of them we continue to believe they are sold assets, not necessarily bought products. And given that, financial intermediaries, I'm sure you would agree, that play a very, very large role, whichever asset class you take. And just like I believe that the HNI, Ultra HNI are actually the most underserved category of stakeholders in our country and probably world over, the next most underserved category as per us is the financial intermediaries. Again, an investor may get the fanciest of the statements and 10,000 SMSs and WhatsApps and emails, what and what not, to quote them. But a financial intermediary like a distributor will not even get their commissions, even on 10th or 15th of the succeeding month for the previous month, right? And that's, I believe, a very, we kind of just take a look at a simple use case. Many of us could be employees in a company. We get our salaries on 30th, 31st. But, none of the distributors get their money, especially given they sell, asset classes across multiple fund houses, anytime even before 5th or 7th or 10th. Now, these are some of the many use cases that we've created whereby you'd be able to compute and process distributor commissions near real time. And it is entirely up to the fund manager whether you would want to eventually go on to devolve the funds or not. But the fact remains that we have the ability to do so. And that is possible, again, largely because you have the ability to embrace both big data and cloud at the same time to be able to process. Now, there are several such use cases, including trade management, your entire order management system, the trades that get out of it, your valuation. All of these will need it. And how quickly can you do it, I'd like to believe is going to be the differentiating factor between who grows the fastest in the industry. Moving along onto the robotic cognitive automation. There are, again, myriad set of use cases, for compliance to accounting and administration, reporting and others. But let's just take more specifically the ones that, I believe, could be automated far more than the others, right? Many of the things, basically this kind of puts a legend in terms of which have high potential of, automation, right? If you take a look at trading, the pre-trade compliances, in the case of support itself, the post-trade, front-to-back recon, even in the case of accounting and admin, a series of others, especially on treasury side and fees, billing, what have you. These, again, as per our assessment, typically the operations and the compliance of a fund house takes away roughly 27 to 30% of your cost, or rather, in other words, that there goes your margin to that extent. And how much we could automate of that is going to be one of those very important drivers for your margin enhancement over a period of time, even as your expense ratios have been coming down, will keep coming down, not just because of competition, but also from regulatory diktats. So we have no choice but to be, every save and every penny saved is a penny earned kind of an attitude needs to be taken, and embracing these RP and RC is extremely important. So look for a partner, who has a massive at-scale automation possibilities, and ideally even partner with them and push them to create more automation strategies that you may not have thought through or were offered. I'll give you a few examples in terms of how you do from a simple credit matching and reconciliations. It's a commonly known fact that in the asset management industry, amongst top 5 pain areas is always your reconciliation, whether it is cash reconciliation, whether it is your general ledger reconciliation, your trade reconciliation, so on and so forth. Now, in an alternatives world, maybe it is not as problematic at this point in time, given the volumes we deal with are not very, very large. But if you get into pensions and mutual funds and other asset classes, you're really talking about now millions of transactions coming through, hundreds and thousands of SIPs coming, all of them with the same denomination, probably 5,000 rupees, so on and so forth. Only for you to realize that your banking system may not necessarily enable you to understand who sent you that particular credit. And without the ability to track and trace who sent it, your ability to provide units obviously goes away, which effectively means that you got a very discontent customer with you. Now, how quickly you could automate that is one of the very important use case for RCA for the fund business. While this is one in terms of the reconciliation, there is hardly any process that cannot be fully automated. It truly is all about understanding what is that last mile of the human involvement, which basically slows down your process. We're only as good as, I guess, the slowest member of our team. There are several use cases on the robotic, but obviously time permitting, we can have a larger discussion. But adoption of APIs and microservices architecture is, we've all known in terms of technology, we moved away from the monolithical, applications, written on Fortrons and COBOLs, etc., which, by the way, even today are used by several large banks and insurance companies in the US, simply because it's just near impossible to migrate them into new age technologies in the context of the loss of business that may happen. It moved into service-oriented architecture, SOA, and then now everything is microservices again. Again, a very, very cliched and ubiquitously used words. But very simply put, it translates to our ability like a Lego brick. How quickly can you take a disparate set of bricks and then assemble it to suit your requirements, I guess, is what microservices architecture is all about. Again, it resonates very well with the industry that we live in. As a fund manager, you will be integrating with a series of applications. As I said, whether it's order management or back office, RTA, fund accountant, custody, trustee, banks, exchanges, so on and so forth. What is your ability to create and get your architecture right the very first time to make sure that you have a seamless flow of information and you are at no point in time having lags and bugs and stuff like that that will come through if you have a monolithical structure, because your ability to remediate an issue gets very tough. Imagine 1 million lines of code sitting in a big monolithical structure. If a problem happens, you have no other alternative but to parse through your entire lines of code to understand what the issue is for you to fix. So your ability to kind of go to market as well as remediate any issues may happen dramatically comes down unless you adopt a microservices architecture. I'll quickly move on into the, for example, what are the good use cases for this, right? Digital onboarding. We looked at this again from the standpoint of, again, a normal mutual fund investor could be onboarded honestly within about 15 minutes, right? If you have everything with your Aadhars and all the documentation that is required digitally. But AIF PMS customer, will have probably a 100-page booklet, of which there may be, close to 35 pages of information to be filled in. Can't be more irritating, honestly, if you have a, investor who basically looks at it and says, what happened? Now, to obviate that problem, the fund managers then create a whole lot of relationship management members and or team members whose job is only to do a back-end filling, which again will result in data entry errors, which again have a, very irate customer at your end. Now, can we do 100% digital onboarding, right? Even for this, which may require a lot more other, requirements, including notarization, including franking, a whole lot of other things. You can actually do it if and only if your architecture is microservices driven, for you to be able to integrate various different players into one single unified platform, provide services to your investors seamlessly to be able to not just onboard, transact, and continue to engage them throughout the life cycle of the customer that they are with you, right? Moving along, another use case is account aggregator. Now, I spoke a little bit about it, and I still don't know how many, fund managers are already in the next stage of not just understanding the framework, but embracing it to, drive your business. Now, with the framework fully live under the aegis of RBI and with the co-signatories of SBI and IRDA, PFRDA, very soon, GST, TRI, everybody is going to launch into it. It is the next UPI moment of the country, as has been envisaged by the PM's office and from the Department of Financial Services. Now, with a single consent, I'm just giving a use case. Let's say, I'm a wealth house 1 and you are the wealth house 2. We have one common investor. Somebody might have invested 50 lakhs with me and somebody might have invested 5 crores with you, hypothetically speaking. And let's say I embrace account aggregator framework and you do not. Given it is the same single customer, with a click of a button, I can secure the consent from the investor to get their entire financial information shipped over to me, which means that not just your banking information, but your investments across fund houses, your investments across alternatives, investments across commodities, insurance, ULIPs, what have you. Now, your CDP and the CRM platform gives you the unique insights into how that investor would prefer to be approached for upsell, cross-sell. Now, you merge these two, what you have is an unfettered access into the human's both financial history and the disposition in terms of how that person could be converted. I'm sure many of you might have been in the RIA platforms which tell you that, hey, look, you are in this scheme through a distributor, you click here and you save 100 basis points, or rather your returns will go up. Why don't you just convert yourself into a direct customer? Extrapolating the same logic into our world, how difficult is it for somebody in the example that I've taken to say that your current fund manager, wealth manager is giving you this kind of return, based on the schemes, because now I have all the information, because account aggregator framework permits you to send it. And for me to basically tell you that why don't you switch over to this particular product that I have to offer for you, and then you make the process of onboarding and the integration so easy, then all it takes is 2 clicks or 3 clicks, and before you know, your customer is gone. And this is not far out. This is not artificial intelligence. This is not something like a ChatGPT, which may take years. This is live, and it is here, and it is now. I'm kind of belaboring on this quite a bit, simply because if you believe data is the new oil, old oil, whatever, that is available for everybody. Whoever embraces this here and now, I'd like to believe will race ahead of the others, right? Again, relating this from a microservices and API architecture standpoint, because the way the account aggregator today collates this information is through APIs to thousands of banks, RTAs, depositories, what have you, to be able to collate that information, provided it in XBRL standards in machine readable format, so that you can take instant decisions, whether it is lending or whether it is pitching for asset management. How far out am I in terms of time? Okay, right, I'm just doing a quick time check. Quickly moving on, another quick use case in terms of how you can leverage your microservices and API for, say, compliance, right? I mean, this, again, a very busy slide, so do not have to belabor too much into what looks there, but let me explain to you what happens here. AML, PML screening, very, very, obvious that it is a mandatory compliance requirement. Yet, we have seen in several instances, whether it is a politically exposed person, whether it is, financial crimes background, so on and so forth, the screening is not very effectively done. Even if it is done, it is probably done at the point of investment. Somebody invests today, and then you check an AML, PML, and then you onboard that person, and you believe that you're compliant. But guess what? It isn't the case, truly, because I may be compliant today, I may not be compliant day after. And what happens to the investments that are made, and what are your obligations as a fund manager to make sure that you stay compliant at all points in time from a regulation standpoint, right? So using, again, a microservices architecture and API architecture, you will be able to continually screen, because you're able to hit the world check database that are offered by some third-party providers with a layer of text sitting on top of it, where I'm every single day checking the compliance of every one of your investors. Again, one of those topics where we may think that, it is too expensive to do it, but again, try not being compliant in this process. So like that, idea is to look at every bit of the fund administration process, and you will constantly be interacting with multiple players. And it is truly the ability of the fund manager to get this equation and the ecosystem right at first go. That will save a lot of blushes, a lot of compliance-related issues that you may face, and more importantly, significantly disillusioned customer, because you will have a broken architecture which gives you disparate set of solutions. We'll move on, and we spoke about regulation, so let's quickly talk about it. Now, you have regulation for your entity, right? Which could be about your income tax, to shops and establishments, to Labor Act, to so on and so forth. You have compliance from the standpoint of operations, which is obviously dictated by SEBI, etc. You have compliance in the form of your assets, which is different. So operations are done by somebody, investment management is done by somebody, and you have multi-jurisdictional situation. Now, what is your ability today to be able to roll up your compliances at a transaction level, at a fund level, and at your entity level, right? It gets very tough. And honestly, processing transactions every single day which meet every one of your compliance standards itself can be quite a nightmarish experience until and unless you have a real-time visibility at a transaction level. How many of those are processed, right? For example, this gives you dashboard, how many transactions have come through, how many of those have been compliant or non-compliant. And there is always a gray area. Some transactions tend to be falling into the gaps, and what exactly do you do with them? What kind of insights do you have to take real-time decisions to make that happen, right? Now, this, for example, is another use case as to how you can use machine learning, especially in terms of fraud and surveillance detection. This is not new to this industry. We work in financial services sector. It doesn't happen that a day does not go by when at least 1,000 to 2,000 odd purported frauds are tried by various people who always try to be one step ahead of most of us over in this room. And until and unless you have systems which have ability at scale to be able to detect them, you're always going to be at a huge risk, not just in terms of financial loss, but of reputational loss as well. So for example, you see this, something that says that on not the blue one, but the second one, same user with 2 different MAC IDs within the same week for statement of account download. Now, it is near impossible if you were ever to do a manual check on something like that. Now, like that, there will be 10,000 different parameters as to how you do it. So we provide these kind of services to be able to make sure that not only your data is processed compliantly, but just as importantly, the surveillance on the fraud detection is exceptionally high. Without that, we are always just honestly one small mistake away, or you don't even have to commit a mistake, but you can have severe impact to your fund movement. And ability to track through tech on big data is truly the way technology is helping us in terms of making sure we're one step ahead of the fraudsters. Moving on, the DLT, distributed ledger technology, is again very, very commonly used, and but I'm sure several of us may have never actually seen a good live use case in financial services. I had the opportunity, for instance, back in the day to implement blockchain and smart contracts for a community in New York who wanted to go off the grid. They did not want electricity to come from the grid. They had solar panels and they were generating electricity. Now you have surplus, your neighbor has deficit of energy because they consume more. How do I do this without having a central nodal agency who supplies the energy, takes the energy, and bills you, right? Now, blockchain was a great use case for that. Now, we extrapolate the same thing into financial services, and you would rarely find anything at all. In fact, there is only one effective blockchain use case in the world today, which is implemented at a national level, and that's in the country of Sweden. It's been going on for 6 years and it is still not complete. It just explains to you in terms of how complex it is. While it may sound reasonably easy to implement in terms of how do you decentralize the ledger, but the complexity starts to come in when it is not a software, it is not one company, it is that your entire ecosystem has to migrate to that, right? And these kind of things usually happen only when the government or a regulator takes the decisions to move that far, and it's a very, very expensive proposition, but there are use cases that we can still leverage and implement, in our day-to-day lives. I'll kind of skip some of these in terms of the reports, etc. But take a look at this, right? I mean, now you all work with, investors. Again, as I said, several of them could be ultra HNIs. You do not want the names of those investors to go out anywhere. Now, you have, as I said, integrated with maybe, RTAs and custodies and banks and payment aggregators. A lot of these people have your clients' names. Now, how do you know that this data is not getting going anywhere, advertently or inadvertently at this point in time, right? Now, one way you could do using blockchain technology is the tokenization, right? Now, tokenization is one of the three key pillars in terms of the blockchain, apart from the smart contract and the distributed ledger. The tokenization problem, the tokenization as a solution could be implemented, has been implemented, for example, whereby you can give a select set of individuals encryption key, which basically they can only use to actually see. For example, if you were to get a customer complaint or a service request, and you would want to know who that person is, you cannot not know at some point in time. And who those individuals are identified, and when you give an encryption key, they're able to decrypt the same, look at the required data, and then engage with the customer. Otherwise, by all means, that data is completely garbled, masked, redacted, however you want to talk about it, right? It is actually no different from, for example, something like, your virtual Aadhaar number. But your ability to implement through technology at scale is what's going to differentiate it, right? Again, simple use cases, something that can be developed and delivered, but very often ignored by most of the fund houses, because they look at these are probably some exotic solutions. Again, one of those things, I think we're all right till such time the data is all sacred and with you, but then the moment it gets desecrated and it goes into the public, then you're actually in the witch hunt process. And it gets ever more important in the context of account aggregator framework, where your data can go to multiple different places. Explainable AI, again, a very, very busy slide, but what's on top is effectively a small haiku that is written by ChatGPT about ChatGPT itself. It was asked to write a haiku, which is a 3-sentence sonnet in Japan, and that's what it's written. And what you look down below is scenarios in terms of how you could use as a fund manager, as a portfolio manager, not just the data sets that you normally have, which is your investment profile, which is your Bloomberg terminals, which is your own native knowledge about all these things, but the alternative data sets that you have. For example, if you're wanting to invest in an energy company, and as a key portfolio, what is today any fund manager's ability to track and trace the shipment movement transatlantic? Right now, that data is available. All you need is right kind of APIs, right kind of partnerships. Now, while the financial information is your key and the most important information, without a doubt, all of these provide you corroboratory evidence before you actually take the plunge of investment. Let's take, any asset management company in India itself today, right? I mean, if its growth is going to be decided by the AUM that you're looking at, what about the alternate data sets that you're looking at? Do you have today the ability to understand in terms of the disposable income trends that are coming through? Do you have the ability to understand in terms of the expenditure that is coming? Do you have the ability to extrapolate the GST collections and then bring it back to in terms of the amount of net worth that the net worth, is expanding for people, and model it back to say what could be the future of this company before you take the decision to actually invest in that company, right? Same is the case with something like a credit bureau. Today, you get your scores from credit bureau largely based on your credit card timely payments and your loan repayments, etc. But it doesn't take into account, for example, if you don't pay your electricity bills on time, if you don't pay your mobile bills on time. Now, these are all just as important alternative data sets that are required to assess a human being's credit worthiness as much as your timely ability to pay your loans, right? So truly it is, and when you want to adapt all these alternate data sets to make a much more informed investment pattern, it is also important to understand that that comes with a lot of data. That data needs to be modeled. That data needs to be then fed into your systems to take those investment decisions. It is not something that has unheard of. A lot of entities leverage them today. Again, it's a matter of how advanced we are in India at this point in time to embrace some of these technologies broadly. So that's pretty much it for me. Once again, thank you so much, for your time, and happy to take any questions if you have now or later. But all I just want to say is that, as common as it may sound in terms of knowledge, that we need to embrace the technologies, and not just tech, but basically what we call as SMAC, social, mobility, analytics, and cloud, as your core pillars, not just your traditional infrastructure and application layer. It is also our ability to embrace, and these are not exotic technologies for the sake of technologies. They have real world repercussions, and one that will continue to promulgate and have a huge influence in terms of how fast you grow and how you can drive margin expansion for your respective companies and alpha generation for your clients. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for this kickstart session, guys. I must say, it was a wonderful session indeed, guys. Come on, everyone. Yes, no? Great. So for the felicitation, we have Aditya sir on the stage from over here, Equalifi, Aditya Garge. Everyone, a big round of applause. All right, I must say that was a kickstart, and I should, I feel like sometimes these subjects, the finance or anything for that matter should be in the school as well, because it's a must required now.